I now I yes, I now see your presentation. Again, good evening, everyone. We are happy to have you here today with our special guest, Dr. Brown. Um, Before any official introduction to Dr. Brown, she was my professor during my Fulbright program. And on the academic level, her sessions and lectures were impactful. I took 2 courses with her. The first one, multicultural education, and the second one was um, integrating like 21st century skills. And on the personal level, she was a very supportive to me, even in some down moments. So I appreciate what she did for me during that time, because in that situations, some people may give up on you, but she didn't do this. So yeah, I was lucky to have her in my life. Thank you, Dr. Brown. And let me now introduce her officially, Dr. Rajni Shankar-Brown. She is a professor and Jesse Ball DuPont Endwood Chair of Social Justice Education. Dr. Brown is among the most prominent educational scholars in social justice in the United States and internationally. She has published leading works, presented around the globe, and received numerous awards for her innovation, leadership, and ongoing community engagement projects. PhD curriculum and instruction with specialization in urban education and literacy education, University of North Carolina at Charlotte. She also received her MA teaching with concentration in middle level education and language arts, University of North Carolina at Charlotte. And her BA was in communication with emphasis in interpersonal communication and international conflict resolution, George Mason University. Yes, so again, welcome. And please, you can start. The floor is yours.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Iman. And I had such a joy of having Iman in 2 of my graduate classes and getting to really know her and be part of her journey. And I'm just so excited to be with all of you today and to be in community with such amazing educators doing such vital and good work. Right now, we are living in a time in our world where we have so many different crises, humanitarian struggles, and yet education is this beacon of hope and promise. And so we need everyone here in this space. So I'm grateful to be able to share and to be together today. I think, we are a good, close enough group here, even though we're virtual, that if you have questions, feel free to ask, put it in the chat. Feel free to, at the end as well, we'll have some time for discussion. If you want to take your mic off and ask, feel free. During the presentation, if you want to mute your mics, I think it's going to help with our audio, right? So if you're not speaking, feel free to mute, and that will just help us as we flow together today. So today we're going to talk about technology in the classroom. We're also going to talk about some global perspectives, some different pieces to consider, to wrestle, to think about as we do this work. I start and open here with a slide of artwork by Ashley Lukashev. And you're going to see in this slide the words "beyond resistance." Educational technology. And when we think about technology, there is a lot to think about, even the history of technology and even the history of education. Often we are living at a time where technologies are changing at rapid speeds. And what we know is our students today must have opportunities to not only consume technology, but actually have chances to be creators and producers using technology in all of the ways, especially knowing that our world is ever changing. In fact, when we do kind of survey research with global employers, one of the main things they say is students today coming into our world need to have digital literacy, be able to use educational technologies in different ways. Students also need to be able to communicate, collaborate, and what we know is technology in the classroom allows a plethora of beautiful opportunities for our students to grow in so many different ways. And so we're going to talk about that today and dive a bit deeper into that. I also want to ground us. And so the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is something that came out in 1948. Of course, countries from around the world got together to talk about fundamental human rights, and Article 26 is the right to education, that everyone has the right to education, understanding that if we are not teaching skills of literacy and high quality education, students may not be able to participate at their fullest, maximum, abilities to thrive in our world. So much of our participation, even when you think about our own health, if we're going to start taking control of health, we have to be able to read and write and look at nutrition labels, right? Understand recipes, food, medical, all the way to thinking about career readiness requires us to have high quality education. And today, part of high quality education means that we are also understanding all of the technological literacies that exist. And so for us as educators, making sure that we are very thoughtful about putting technology into our classrooms, into our curriculum, our instructional practices becomes quite vital. And so again, Article 26, education. We are living at a time now where we're seeing a lot of divides. So globally, you can start to look at even things like poverty and how it's impacting learning and what poverty looks like, how it sometimes creates barriers and hurdles to learning. One of the beautiful things about technology has both pros and cons, right? Lots of positives and things that we have to be careful with as well. One of the positives is if we use technology in very mindful ways and equity-centered ways, we actually can start to help to close some of the divides in our world. Just look at us today. We're able to connect virtually across oceans in different countries, but come together and create this learning environment, this environment to share and exchange ideas. And it would not be possible without technology, right? We're able to get on and to be together with technology. So in that same way, we want to start thinking about how do we differentiate education in our schools and classrooms, and how do we start to close some of the divides that exist. And so I want to take a moment and I want to actually engage all of you here. If you will, take a moment in the chat and share, what do you currently do? What students do you work with or age groups? Where are you currently teaching or educating? Share a little bit about yourself in the chat. And I see we have Lami, who is from, Nigeria, sharing here today. Beautiful. Iman, 4 years working with university students. Awesome. Adult students, okay. Teaching university students in Minya, okay, beautiful. Teaching translation technology courses. We have both working with undergrad and graduate. This is fantastic. Diverse ages. We have adult and young learners, Ezra says. Beautiful. Dior ESL to teenagers. Okay. English as a second language from 4 to 18-year-olds. And Iman shares that students are also visually impaired. Okay. So this is beautiful. You know, continue to keep sharing. One of the reasons I asked the question, we want to think about, even as we think of technology in our classrooms, in all of the different ways it can help to affirm diversity. So we have some different age groups that are being taught. We also have differentiation. Iman brings up a good example here, right, of having visual impaired learners in the classroom. So all of us are going to have diverse students that we're working with, no matter what age, whether we're working with children or teenagers or adult learners. And so one of the beautiful things about technology is there are many ways we can use technology in the classroom to meet diverse learners. So in this photo here that you actually see kindergarten or primary students all the way to university students, right, that are kind of mingled in. And so this is through a project that I lead called Acts of Kindness and Justice. And we are able to use technology in all sorts of ways to not only bridge learning gaps, but also to start to build goodness in our world by using technology to create. And I'm going to share more examples today with that. In addition, I have artwork here by Helena Perales. She is a graphic designer who works out of Spain and Paris often. And when you look at this artwork, what do you see? Use the chat maybe to share. When you look at this artwork by Helena Perales, the graphic image there, what comes to your mind? Okay, I see diversity. Awesome. A lot of folks saying diversity. Okay, beautiful, beautiful. This is great. So, you know, and art is, of course, subjective. Everyone can interpret art in a multitude of ways, which is the beauty of art. For me, when I look at this, I think of many things. I think about the maze that we are all living in today of our world, the complexities of our world, right? Almost this great big maze. And I love, we have connection, varieties, different backgrounds. These are such good answers. I love it. And so when I look at this maze, I think about all of this, right? What you're sharing, connections, diversity, thinking about all of our different backgrounds. I also think about this great maze that we're all trying to navigate. We're all in these different areas moving. Sometimes it can feel overwhelming even. Education is a lot, right? We're handling a lot of different things. Dior says the dark and light side, right, of education. Very good. So I think about also the fact that we are living in a very complex world right now, where we have a lot of uncertainty. Even when you think about the jobs of the future, there's a lot of uncertainty because of technological advances, because of globalization. I also see the orange coming in as sunlight or hope. That even though we're walking through this very complex maze, we have a lot of uncertainty in our world and a lot of heaviness in our world. We also have hope, this sunlight. And so sometimes we have to step back in order to actually see those interconnected connections and to remember the hope and to remember the work that all of us are doing in our classrooms matters, right? We are making a difference. We are building hope. And that is important for all of us. And I think in a space like this, we get to support each other as well. So why use ed technology in the classroom? There are a number of reasons why, right? And so I want to start to talk about some of these reasons. So one, we know that technology allows us and has tools to actually break down abstract concepts in digestible manners. So let's give some examples around that. One, even thinking about visuals, right? Using visuals to break down big concepts. Right here, you have an example of that, right? We have a graphic organizer that's been created using technology to give us some of the key concepts that we are looking at. When we teach, we have diverse learners in our students. For many students, what we know is information needs to be presented in different ways in order for that information to become digestible and in order for that information to really resonate and to retain. And so visuals can be very powerful. And we live in an age where now we can use visuals in all sorts of ways to really break down concepts and to help us to learn. If you think about children, very early on, children often, their first literacy is often with picture books, where pictures are part of learning words. And there's a reason for that. We know that even through brain research, often we are linking literacy concepts with these images. And we start doing that very early on as children. In fact, there's a concept in literacy education known as DRITE. I'm going to put this in our chat, DRITE. And that is the combination of drawing and writing, DRITE, right? We're drawing and we're writing. And kids do this very naturally. If you have a kid and they're writing and they get to a word sometimes that they don't know or understand, they may draw a picture of it, right? Maybe I don't know how to spell crown, so I draw a crown. And so this idea of images and visual simulations becomes really important. Also, think about even interactive engagement through visual simulation. An example would be a video. Maybe you're bringing music or video clips in, and they're dynamic. They pull the learner in different ways. Thinking about all of the ways we can use technology now in our classroom with data support. It is very important that we as educators use data strategically to not only help our students and to track things like grades and how are students doing in terms of learning, but also to help us with our own teaching. So we can start to track things like progression, even our content, right? And even things like if we're giving out a test, what are the questions students are missing? What are the questions students overwhelmingly are doing well in? And if students are missing in a certain area, that allows us to go back and reteach. It allows us to say as an educator, maybe we have to do a better job here. It's not just about the learner, but the teacher as well, right? There has to be this kind of bi-directional relationship there. And technology allows us to do that. We can play with so many tools, including free tools that exist these days, right? Which is really awesome. Going into interactivity. So I'm kind of moving like a clock. So interactivity, we have so many different ways for students to connect. And some students may not feel as comfortable speaking out aloud, but it's interesting. You get them behind a screen or a discussion board, they really may feel comfortable sharing their ideas. And so we want to think about interactivity with technology. How do we do peer-to-peer learning, just like we're doing teacher-to-peer learning? How do we also engage the community in ways? Technology allows communities to also come in and to be part of this. In addition, thinking about learning digital skills. So digital literacy and technology is huge. Our students need to be able to understand and use things like Excel, spreadsheets, need to understand things like PowerPoint, Canva, presentation skill sets. All of these platforms are often changing. So what we want our students to really get is comfortable and competent in learning how to use new technologies too. So the process becomes really important, and we're able to differentiate, right? See Abir put differentiation-based learning. Absolutely, right? And we can differentiate through using these technologies as well. Accessibility, that's huge. How do we remove barriers as we're teaching? So even let's go back to Iman earlier shared with us having visually impaired students in her classroom. Well, the beautiful thing about technology, right, is we can start to use technology to help. So even if we're showing a video that's very visual based, if we have audio descriptions that are actually breaking down what is happening in that video, the student can start to visualize and see through the audio. Similarly, if you have somebody who is hard of hearing, if you have a video you're playing in the classroom, it is essential that you're putting captions on, that you have that ability for the student to see the captions so they can understand what is happening in the video. And even things like music. Music often adds a tone or a feeling to something we are looking at in a video, for example. And so by having captions that share some of that, we can help to recreate for a student who may have those differentiated needs. And so we want to think about removing barriers. We want to think about engaging activities. And one of my favorites, creativity. So if you look at something called Bloom's taxonomy, I'm going to put this in the chat. Bloom's taxonomy came out around 1956. And it has been central to ways we have built curriculum and instruction, teaching us about different skill sets and also tiered learning. How do we go from lower skills up to higher skills? Since Bloom's taxonomy, we now also have revised Bloom's taxonomy. And in the revised Bloom's taxonomy, we actually see the original taxonomy of nouns changed into verbs. We also see something very, very interesting and I think powerful. The highest level of learning in the revised taxonomy is create. Putting it in our chat, create. So what we found is that when our students are engaged in creation, they are using all of the different skills from summarizing and analyzing and evaluating and, just in terms of informing, all of these different skill sets end up being used in different ways. Because in order to create, that is a higher level skill set. We're having to do a lot of things when we create something. So think about if you assign your students the job of creating a video. Maybe the video is on a particular topic and they're having to create a video around this. Well, in order to do that, they have to research, they have to get the information, they have to be able to articulate and understand what is being presented in the video. They have to use the technological skills from editing all the way to being able to think about things like background music, thinking about what visuals do we put and how are they aligned with the concepts that we are trying to present. There is a lot going on. And so create is actually that higher level. And so you can see here, thinking about using technology to create movies, to write stories, thinking about global audiences. So even thinking about things like blogs, right? Having an audience for what students are actually creating and doing can be very, very powerful. So here we have, again, a lot of things going on in this image, right? A lot of different things that are going on in this image. And so here, when you look, you're going to see discussion, problem solving, storytelling, presenting, brainstorming, collaborative writing, lots of things. And I think by mistake, let me off this. I think I'm drawing as I talk to you. I'm annotating. And I did not mean to annotate. So let me off my annotations. You all are getting a lot of red lines here that I am not intending to put. So let me erase these red lines.
Actually,
Beautiful, beautiful red lines.
me, delete the red line. Someone is like,
But it's great. This is actually another feature in Zoom. So if any of you teach virtually, does anybody teach online classes here or use online to teach?
yeah.
I wonder, oh, I see some hands. Okay. Well, great tool. So when you are sharing your slides, Zoom has a tool where you can annotate as you teach. So in fact, right before I joined all of you to do this talk, I was teaching a class and some of my students were joined online. And so I use the tool as a way, just like if we're in a classroom, we're pointing to things, right? We're saying, look at this, pay attention here. I actually use the annotation tool as I'm teaching to highlight things, to bring their attention into a certain area. If I'm making a connection between two areas, I use the annotator to actually show that. And it is very, very helpful, right? Very, very helpful. So I still have my annotations going. And I was pointing actually with my own arrow, even as I'm teaching you online, just like if we were in person, right? My own brain is thinking, look at this, go here, look at this. And if we do this, right? And that's where those annotations can also help. So I love that. So here we want to think about our goals, right? Our competencies. What are we trying to achieve? And a lot of times we are trying to achieve more than one thing within a lesson. We may be having students learn about something like numbers if we're teaching math, but we may also have the goal of having them collaborate as we're learning. So we're kind of juxtaposing different things, right? And so this gives us a way to think about all of the different assessments we may have in mind, our competencies, but then all of these different types of technology we can start to use. And it's interesting about technology because it is always changing. We start to incorporate or learn one form of technology, and sometimes very soon it's outdated because another form comes along. So we as educators also have to be lifelong learners, right? Lifelong learners. That is very, very, very important. And so, in fact, somebody asked about the tool, right? How do I do this if I want to use an annotation tool while teaching online? If you go in Zoom, in your headings, you actually will see something called annotate. And if you push on annotate, you can play with that as you're teaching, right? And annotate starts to let us have all kinds of tools to highlight, to connect, to draw, to erase, like I just did, right? I was drawing and I said, oh, I need to erase that. So there's an eraser button you can actually use. So play around. One of the things I love to do as a teacher, as an educator, as a professor, I play. I play a lot, right? And sometimes you want to even have a trusted friend. So you may find somebody within this space and group that becomes a buddy where you both get on Zoom together, for example, and you say, hey, I want to try some things out. Can you be my pretend student, right? And so if you have a friend, you can set up that trusted environment as you're learning how to use tools. And that can be really, really fantastic, a really great way to play around and to start to learn how to use tools. Here, you see a lot of different things. From LMSs, do you know what LMS stands for? Okay, Iman?
It's learning management system, like Blackboard when we were in a session.
Yes, exactly. Learning management systems. And there are many learning management systems. Blackboard is one example. Canvas, some of you might have heard of Canvas. That's another example. There are free learning management systems as well that exist. And you can start to organize things like you may put your syllabus, readings, have a discussion board where students start to engage with each other, right? Peer-to-peer learning. You may think about simulation games, media, blogs, which we talked about, even thinking about creative ways like podcasting. So I often have my students create podcasts to showcase their learning. That can be through audio podcasts, are video podcasts. So Iman, you even made a video podcast back in the day in my class a very long time ago. But it's really fun for students because they're having to use technology and make connections as they actually create. And then on our side, we get to use that as an assessment. And one of the teacher tips I want to give you all, right? Depending on what subject you teach, if you teach math, it may be more straightforward with what you're grading. If you're teaching something within the field of literacy, reading paper after paper after paper, you may get tired, right? And so there are times we want to go ahead and assign papers or research papers, but there are other times where we may want to give our students an assignment that's a little more creative. And what that does is it allows the students to engage in higher level learning. It also helps us to preserve our joy as educators because it can be really fun, right? And we have to do that as well so we don't burn out. That is the big thing across education now. We are seeing very, very high burnout. So one of the things we want to do is how do we prevent that? How do we make sure we preserve our joy in teaching and in learning? That is very important. All right, let me keep going here. So some other things for us to think about, right? Video and audio. We want to think about all of the ways that we're including video, we're including audio. If we are teaching in a virtual environment, we also want to make sure that we're going over different pieces that are important for students to understand. So an example would be, what is our way of operation? So today at the beginning, we talked about, mute when you're not talking. That helps audio, right? Let's pull up the chat, use the chat feature. When we're starting out, we want to make sure we teach our students how to use all of those and not assume that all students know how, because we're going to have diverse learners. The other thing is even platforms like Zoom as an example, sometimes Zoom has updates and it may change things where a feature moves, for example. And so taking a moment to go over that is a really, really good practice to do. Thinking about podcasting, we talked about that. There are so many good podcasts for students to actually listen in, and then you can have them recreate their own podcast, which can be really fun. Mobile devices. Nowadays, our students are learning often and using their phones for a lot of things, right? They're accessing information through phones. So thinking about, are there mobile apps that may be good for our students to explore and play with? What are things that may be helpful? And there are so many free things out there now. So that's one of the beautiful things. Being interactive. Our students today, they are growing up, for so many, especially younger generations. They've never known a world without technology. They've come out of the womb almost, and for many, they are around phones or devices or gadgets, right? So how do we start to make sure that we are teaching them tech safety? How do we make sure also we are helping them with using technology in ways and not just being consumers? So if we are just consumers of technology, where we're scrolling mindlessly, we're just watching TV and movies all the time, a lot of our students, that is their reality. That's going to lead to some bigger gaps in knowledge than if we are to intentionally create opportunities to use and produce through technology. So we want to aim to move our students from consumers to producers or creators. When we do that, there are some powerful benefits and effects. So, think about interactivity and be creative. Sometimes we may work in an environment where we don't have access to a lot of technology. So what are ways we can start to think about building those technology tools? Or maybe we don't have a smart projector, but our students have iPhones with them or smartphones. So maybe we can have them pulling up and doing things on their phones, even though we don't have a big projector. So sometimes we have to be really innovative as we're doing this. More and more, it's interesting. We now have virtual realities as a way to teach. So in the United States, I just helped with a federal project around poverty and homelessness, where we are helping folks who are working in shelters and wraparound services have professional development opportunities through virtual reality, so they can start to engage and build even their muscle of empathy, which is really important. Learning management systems. We just talked about LMSs. There are two words within virtual technology and teaching that are important: asynchronous and synchronous. So asynchronous, right, is learning that is happening online, but students can kind of do on their own, right? They can go in, they can go out of that learning. It is self-paced often. Synchronous, we are all online at the same time and place. So right now, we are synchronously learning. We are online, but we all are kind of learning in real time, right? So think about how to build both experiences in for students. Online collaboration spaces are huge. When we think about technology in the classroom, remember today, our classrooms extend beyond four walls. Our students have the ability to keep connected and to engage even outside of the classroom, especially if we're building those opportunities, right? Thinking about adaptive learning, learning personalization or differentiation of education, and then again, personalizing, adding creativity into what we're doing. There is a famous song in the civil rights movement here in the United States called "A Change Is Gonna Come." It's a beautiful song by Sam Cooke, sings a version that's really, really beautiful. It was part of civil rights marches when humans were marching to get rights like voting rights, different types of rights. And the song, one of the lyrics within the song, it says, "It's been a long, long time coming, but I know a change is gonna come. Oh, yes, it will." And so it's this idea that change is gonna come. It's part of the reality of our world. And when we work together for good, positive change is gonna come. But we have to prepare for change. We have to bend the arc for change. We have to help our students be part of good and good changes that are needed in our world. So back to the movement I shared, acts of kindness and justice. Be kind, let your love spread the world. And as we're thinking about teaching and learning, remember to include our kids in ways and think about how we can bring technology into the classroom in ways that go beyond the classroom as well. So an example here, our students right now are working on some beautiful artwork around spreading kindness. That's part of this movement and our curriculum that we have. And so with that, we're now thinking about how do we create a digital art gallery so that our students' artwork can be shared beyond just our own community, because they're creating some really powerful pieces, right? So how do we expand our impact? And technology allows us to do that. It allows us to connect in so many beautiful and powerful ways. Thinking about justice, I love to think about butterflies. Butterflies are one of my favorite creatures in our world. They're magnificent. Anybody who teaches science knows how they start from a caterpillar and they go through metamorphosis to become this beautiful butterfly that we see. And butterflies are actually very important to the biodiversity of our planet as well. They are really important to the environment. But here's something many times people don't realize about butterflies. They have something very, very magical in them called imaginal cells. And when these cells first start out, the caterpillar, the body of the butterfly, it says, I don't recognize these imaginal cells, and it starts to resist and push back. But these imaginal cells keep coming and coming and coming, and they come together and they start to become this really powerful force that then takes over and allows the butterfly to change into this really amazing, beautiful, magnificent creature. And it's quite a process, right? A lot of hard work and science goes behind that we don't sometimes see when we just see the fluttering butterfly. And I bring this up as an analogy for all of us. I think in a lot of ways, we are facing so many challenges in education. But when we come together like imaginal cells and we support each other, we can have these beautiful results, just like the butterfly. The other thing is, on an individual level as educators, even with something like technology in the classroom, sometimes it can be frustrating. We might have things that happen that are not ideal, where we have errors, right? Technological difficulties that pop up. And it can be challenging. It can make us feel, oh, it's not a perfect lesson. But here's the important thing. Just like the caterpillar persisted, we want to persist. And we want to learn and grow and continue to get better. And as we do that, again, we have opportunities to create something so beautiful and magical in our classrooms and in our world. So I want to thank you. I know here at 1:05, I have to go to teach a seminar, but this has been lovely. Oh my goodness, you all were so active in the chat. And just getting to be here in community and space with all of you. I know I have a very full heart. I'm just so happy. I'm also going to send Iman a few links to some helpful resources to share out with all of you as a connection piece as well, that I think you all will enjoy exploring. And just know, I am so happy to come back and do this again. Iman, what a great group. If it's helpful for you all, I have so many different lessons. So if you want me to come back in the future, just keep me posted, and I'm happy to share. As educators, we are a global community as well, and we've got to support each other in this work and continue to share resources and do good in our world. Namaste. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Brown, for everything. And of course, we are looking forward for more cooperation in the future. And I don't want to take from your time because you have another seminar. Good luck with your work.
Yes,
Yes.
we are truly honored to have Dr. Brown with us today. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, we are.
thank you so
Thank you.
much. Thank you, Iman. Thank you, Ezra. Thank you to everybody who's here. Salva, I love your background. It's beautiful. I love it. I love it.
Thank you for liking the design of the poster. Thank you.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Technology and artistic action.
I am the LT coordinator, learning
Yes.
technology.
Oh,
Yes,
fabulous.
we have the cooperation with the LT today.
Oh,
So
that is great.
we honored, yes, to have you today. Yes. Yes.
Oh, well, I am so happy to be here, and I'll send some more resources, and I hope to see all of you again soon. Keep up the amazing work.